We have to cut out of that because of this breaking news that we are getting on the broadcast, and this concerns the old Rajinder Nagar incident where 3 young students had to lose their lives after the inundation of their library basement really happened. Now, Supreme Court has taken Suo Motu cognizance on these deaths at old Rajinder Nagar. The top court has sought responses from the Delhi government, asked them to frame guidelines. More details about this from my colleague Ananya, who is tracking this story. Ananya, details please.
Well, definitely, it's a big, observation coming in from the Supreme Court when, the top court of the country has taken a suo motu cognizance of the issue pertaining to the deaths that had taken place at the old Rajinder Nagar area at that particular coaching center, where 3 innocent lives were lost. And very clearly and categorically, the Supreme Court went on to say that these places, these coaching centers are becoming death chambers. And the Supreme Court going as far as to say that the center and the Delhi government will have to come up with certain guidelines, and all these coaching centers would have to comply with the fire safety standard, and that's exactly what the topmost of the country has gone on to say. Remember, these are the observations by Justice Suryakant, who was hearing a particular matter with regards to a challenge to an order that was passed by the Delhi High Court against the coaching centers in fact, the incident of Mukherjee Nagar. And now, the Supreme Court has taken a suo motu cognizance of the old Rajinder Nagar area incident and has sought a response from, in fact, the Delhi government and the central government as well. So what happens next is something that we'll have to wait and watch for. But strong observations coming in from the topmost of the country going on as far as to say that, these coaching centers are becoming death chambers.
Absolutely. And Ananya, when the Supreme Court has asked the Delhi government to, in fact, form guidelines when it is about in the aftermath of this gruesome incident really that was reported out of old Rajinder Nagar, that is also the center for many such coaching institutes. What exactly is the kind of action that we are now looking at?
Well, the Supreme Court has issued notice to the Delhi government and the central government as well. But at the same point of time, the High Court had passed an extensive order on Friday, wherein it had handed over the whole, relook at the physical, administrative and the financial infrastructure of national capital to a committee, that was formed by the High Court, headed by, in fact, Chief Secretary of the National Capital Territory of Delhi, also comprising the Vice Chairman of, in fact, the DDA and, various other top officials of the Delhi government and, in fact, the central government. But very clearly and categorically, the unfortunate loss of these lives, the Delhi government has been passing the buck. And that's exactly why, the High Court had taken such a strong step. In fact, the Delhi police had also carried out a story probe arresting the passerbys. And the High Court had, gone on to as far as to say that, it's thanks to God that the Delhi police did not find, in fact, the water that had entered that particular premises.
Yes.
While, in fact, the Delhi government and the MCD were passing the buck on each other. And hence, the High Court had to take a strong step. And now the Supreme Court also kicking in with, in fact, the suo motu cognizance.
Right. Ananya, now that the Supreme Court has questioned, and heavily so, of the Delhi government, what is the kind of implications that this sort of a guideline or probably a response by the court will have on the MCD specifically? Because the MCD has been busy passing the buck. The people who have been named as the people responsible are in the lower rung of the entire MCD. So all of that really needs to be questioned right now. Has that come out of the court?
Well, as far as this matter is concerned, this was with regard to, Mukherjee Nagar area. Hence, the court did not go much into what had happened in the old Rajinder Nagar area, but has now issued notice, in fact, to the Delhi government and the central government. And we'll have to wait and watch as to when, in fact, the center and the Delhi government comes back with its responses. Then, the High Court would, the Supreme Court would have some kind of observations to make.
Okay. All right, Ananya, let me actually take our viewers through what is coming out of the Supreme Court once again for the benefit of our viewers. This is what the Supreme Court has done at the moment, taking suo motu cognizance of the deaths, the 3 deaths at old Rajinder Nagar IS Coaching Institute. Now, the top court has sought responses from the Delhi government, asked them to frame guidelines, and they have also made some scathing observations. They have said that these coaching centers have become death chambers. You are taking away the lives of young people, and all of these people come from different parts of the country. These are the scathing observations that have been made by the Supreme Court. Answerability now lies with the Delhi government. The Delhi government has been asked to frame guidelines. We have seen how belated action really has taken place after these 3 young lives were taken after the inundation of an illegally run library in the basement of the IS Coaching Institute really happened. After that, we had seen the JCBs put in service. There were pavements that were concretized illegally. All of that was taken down by the MCD, but all at the cost of these 3 lives. And now the Supreme Court seeking responses from the Delhi government. Let's see what the Delhi government, the Aam Aadmi Party government in Delhi, really has to say after the Supreme Court has come down heavily on this, and especially the kind of answerability that will be sought of the MCD. That also is the big question. Ananya, when it comes to these scathing observations, the Supreme Court calling these coaching institutes, and remember this is not just one coaching institute that we are talking about. There are numerous that are running in old Rajinder Nagar area alone. There are other places of Delhi that we are still to look at. They've called this death chambers for these students who come to it from different parts of the country.
Well, definitely, there are numerous coaching institutes that are running in the national capital territory of Delhi. And very categorically, and I read what the Supreme Court has said, that we are not sure what effective steps have been taken by the MCD and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. The recent unfortunate incident taking away the lives of some young aspirants in the coaching center are before us and all. We deem it appropriate to expand the scope of the present petition and include the center and the MCD through the Chief Secretary to show cause as to what safety norms have been prescribed so far, and if so, what is the effective mechanism involved to ensure the compliance. So basically, the Supreme Court going on to say that, it has implemented, in fact, the MCD and the central government into this matter, and it has sought a response with regards to what effective measures have been taken by, in fact, the Municipal Corporation of Delhi and also, the central government. So we'll have to wait and watch as to how things pan out and whether or not, some kind of a strong observation comes out from the Supreme Court. Because today also the Supreme Court went as far as to say that, in fact, that these coaching centers are becoming death chambers in the national capital.
And have there been any, Ananya, when it comes to these guidelines, have any of that come from the Delhi government before the Supreme Court really, came down heavily on it?
Well, there are already fire safety norms that are to be, adhered to. However, most of these coaching centers do not, prescribe any kind of a fire safety norms. And as we saw in the Rao Institute as well, the fire safety mechanisms were not carried out properly.
Okay.
And that's exactly why, these kind of incidents take place. First, it was at Mukherjee Nagar, where, unfortunate fire had taken place, and now it was the Rao Coaching Institute. So all of these, combined, the Supreme Court will now be looking into all of these aspects and has sought a response from the Delhi government and the central government. So what would the center and the Delhi government be saying is something that would be very, very interesting to see. And not only that, the High Court's order and the High Court's committee, the committee set up by the High Court headed by the Chief Secretary of Delhi, also comprising the Vice Chairman of the Delhi Development Authority, is something that would be submitting its report in 8 weeks before the Delhi High Court. So we'll have to wait and watch as to how things pan out in both these courts, and will the Supreme Court be taking
talking about the High Court, we had seen how the High Court has also pulled up the Delhi police over the arrest of this driver that they had made, who had waded through inundated roads, and the police said that it was because of him taking that vehicle through that road is why the water gushed into the basement. Has the Supreme Court really weighed in on the Delhi police's action as well?
Well, as far as the Rajinder Nagar incident is concerned, at this particular point of time, the Supreme Court has not, come into the picture with regards to the role of the Delhi police, but has definitely, questioned how these coaching centers are running and saying that, these are nothing more than death chambers where young lives are being lost.
Right. Ananya, thank you so much for all of those details that are coming out of the Supreme Court. Mr. Amit Malviya of the Bharatiya Janata Party is with us on the broadcast at the moment. Mr. Malviya, a very, very scathing observation there coming out of the Apex Court. Your first words, sir.
There are two broad issues here. One, that of management, particularly in the monsoon season, and secondly about the coaching centers and the way they have flourished all around Delhi. And the first, it is Arvind Kejriwal's Aam Aadmi Party that has been in power in the Delhi government as well as now in the MCD for last several years. It was 2022 when the Apex Committee, which is responsible for assessing flooding situation in Delhi, which is headed by the Chief Minister, was held. That meeting also was not taken by Arvind Kejriwal but his deputy. Subsequently, no such meeting was held. the LG asked for the ministers responsible for Water Ministry, the Delhi Jal Board, and MCD to come together